There is a price for seeing beyond what others can, a weight to knowing things before they unfold. You have carried this weight, walked through life with vision others lacked, and suffered the consequence of being ahead of your time. They dismissed you, they laughed at your insights, they called you paranoid, dramatic, or delusional, but deep down you always knew. You saw patterns where they saw coincidences. You understood dynamics they couldn't comprehend. You felt the energy shifting before the change arrived. You tried to warn them, tried to share the wisdom that could have spared them pain, but they weren't ready to hear it. The truth is merciless. It does not wait for permission. It does not need approval. It does not ask if people are ready. It simply reveals itself when the time is right. And now that time has come. One by one, the illusions they clung to are collapsing. The people they trusted have shown their true colors. The structures they defended so passionately are crumbling. The certainty they once held so tightly has slipped through their fingers, and in the silence that follows, they remember. They hear your voice echoing through their regrets, replaying in their minds like a forgotten warning they wish they had heeded. They don't want to admit it, but they know. They know that you saw what they refused to see. They know that every warning they ignored, every insight they mocked, was not just paranoia, it was truth. And now they are left in the ruins of their own denial, looking back at you with quiet recognition, even if they refuse to say the words out loud. This is the moment the chosen ones were always destined for, not a moment of revenge, not an "I told you so," but a quiet, unshakable knowing that you were never lost. You were simply ahead. The price of seeing clearly. Wisdom comes with a cost. To see beyond the illusion means to walk alone, to exist in a space where others cannot meet you. It means carrying truths that others reject, holding onto knowledge that isolates you, and enduring the loneliness of being misunderstood. But this is the nature of vision. The chosen ones have always seen the cracks in the foundation before the collapse, but the world prefers comforting lies over uncomfortable truths. You have always felt the weight of foresight, the burden of awareness. You saw through the false smiles, the empty promises, the deception disguised as truth. While others admired the surface, you saw what lay beneath. And when you tried to speak, they rolled their eyes. When you tried to warn, they silenced you. Not because you were wrong, but because your truth threatened their illusion. People do not resist wisdom because it is false. They resist it because it forces them to change. It demands that they confront the reality they have spent their lives avoiding. It strips them of their excuses, their blind faith in false security, their belief that everything will work out simply because they wish it to. And so, instead of listening, they attacked the messenger. They called you negative, dramatic, impossible to please. They convinced themselves that you didn't know what you were talking about. It was easier to discredit you than to consider that you might be right. And yet, the truth does not require their belief to be real. It exists, waiting. Time moves forward, revealing everything in its own relentless way. And now, those same people who laughed at you, who dismissed you as paranoid, are beginning to see what you saw all along. The resistance you faced. The chosen ones are never accepted at first. They are ignored, ridiculed, ostracized, because the world is uncomfortable with those who think differently. You did not follow the script. You refused to conform to the narrative that made others feel safe. You questioned when they wanted you to obey. You saw the flaws in their certainty, the danger in their blind trust. And for that, they fought you. They whispered about you behind your back, convincing themselves that you were the problem. They rolled their eyes at your caution, believing that their confidence was superior to your insight. They mocked your intuition, thinking it was nothing more than paranoia. But now, as the consequences unfold, as the things they swore would never happen become reality, they can no longer laugh. The certainty they once wielded like a weapon has abandoned them. The systems they defended so fiercely are failing them. And you remain untouched. They don't know how to reconcile it. They don't know how to admit that the one they dismissed was the one who saw clearly all along. Their pride won't allow them to come to you to say the words they now know are true. So instead, they watch in silence. They observe from the shadows, trying to understand what they once rejected. They linger a little too long when you speak now. They hesitate before dismissing you. because deep down they know. They know that they should have listened. They know that if they had paid attention, they wouldn't be standing in the wreckage of their own choices. But the hardest truth of all is that regret cannot undo the past. The warnings they ignored cannot be unignored. The wisdom they rejected cannot be unrejected. They must now live with the knowledge that they had the chance to see and chose blindness instead. The moment of realization. There is a moment when denial cracks, a moment when reality is undeniable, when the illusions they fought so hard to believe in collapse under the weight of truth. That moment has arrived. At first, they try to rationalize it. They tell themselves that it's all just coincidence, that it's not as bad as it seems. But the signs keep coming. The losses keep stacking. The truths they refuse to face are now written in the reality they live. They hear your words echoing in their minds, replaying in conversations where they once dismissed you. They feel the weight of every choice they made, every warning they ignored, every truth they mocked. They remember how they spoke to you with arrogance, how they dismissed you as if your insight was worth nothing, how they convinced themselves that they were right, that you were lost, that you were the one who couldn't see clearly. But now, as they look around at the chaos unfolding, as they watch the people they trusted betray them, as they see the very structures they defended falling apart, they can no longer deny it. The hardest part for them is not just that they were wrong, it's that you were right. And not just a little right. Completely, undeniably, inescapably right. They don't know how to face it. They don't know how to look you in the eye now, so they don't. They avoid conversations that would force them to acknowledge what they once rejected. They hesitate before speaking your name. They watch from a distance, hoping you don't notice, hoping they can learn from you now without having to admit what they once denied. But you don't need their validation. You never did, because you always knew that truth does not require belief to be true. And now, as they stand in the ruins of their own making, as they struggle with the weight of their regret, you stand firm. You do not need their apologies, their recognition, their attempts to rewrite history, because you have already won, not by proving them wrong, but by knowing that you were never lost. You were simply ahead. And now, they finally realize it too. How the past echoes into the present. The past does not disappear. It lingers, weaving itself into the present, whispering through moments of reflection and regret. For them, it is a weight they cannot escape. Every decision they made, every truth they ignored, every moment they dismissed your words, it all comes back now. They may not say it out loud, but they feel it. They replay the moments when you spoke with conviction, when you warned them of what was coming, and they chose to laugh instead. They remember rolling their eyes, brushing off your insights as if they were nothing more than the ramblings of someone who didn't understand. But now, in the silence, those same words echo in their minds, louder than ever before. They used to find comfort in dismissing you. It made them feel in control, superior even, to ridicule what they couldn't comprehend. They convinced themselves that they knew better, that their certainty was unshakable. But the past has a way of creeping into the present, uninvited and relentless. Now, every sign they ignored, every gut feeling they suppressed, every truth they refused to see is staring them in the face. And in those quiet moments, when the world slows down and there is no one left to impress, they remember. They remember how they judged you for not following the path they believed was right. They remember how they whispered among themselves, ridiculing your choices, your caution, your refusal to conform. But now they see that your path was never the wrong one. It was simply one they didn't have the courage to walk. And so, the past speaks to them, not as a distant memory, but as a painful realization that everything they once rejected was exactly what they needed. The shift in power. They never expected the balance to shift. They thought they held the power of the majority, the power of approval, the power of social validation. They believed that dismissing you meant they had control, that ignoring your wisdom rendered it meaningless. But power is not found in numbers. It is not found in arrogance, in loud voices, in collective denial. True power lies in truth, and truth has no master. And now the scales have tipped. At first they tried to hold onto their old ways, clinging to the comfort of certainty. They doubled down on their beliefs, laughed even louder, convinced themselves that they were still right, but reality does not bow to illusions. Slowly, their confidence began to crack. The things they swore would never happen started unfolding in front of their eyes. The people they trusted turned on them. The systems they defended collapsed, and the words they once dismissed returned, no longer as warnings but as undeniable facts. Now they hesitate. Where once they dismissed you without thought, they now pause, considering your words in ways they never did before. They listen differently, not because they want to, but because they have no choice. You were the one they disregarded, yet now they find themselves looking to you for understanding. They won't say it out loud. Their pride won't let them, but their actions betray them. They watch you, study you. Listen carefully to the things they used to ignore. The power dynamic has changed, not because you sought it, but because truth always stands when everything else falls away. You never had to demand their respect. You never needed their validation. And now, without asking, you have both. The ones who once laughed are now silent, not because they finally understand, but because they no longer have the confidence to deny you. The collapse of their illusions. Illusions only last for as long as people choose to believe in them. But belief is not enough to hold up what was never real. They built their lives on foundations made of wishful thinking, false promises, and selective ignorance. They convinced themselves that if they ignored the truth long enough, it would cease to exist. But truth does not disappear, it waits. And now, it is time for them to face what they so desperately tried to avoid. The relationships they thought were unbreakable have shattered. The careers they believed would last forever have crumbled. The promises they clung to, promises made by people they trusted, have proven to be empty. The very things they laughed at you for seeing, they now see themselves, but too late. They fought to preserve a reality that was never sustainable, and now they are standing in its ruins, searching for something solid to hold on to. But illusions leave nothing behind. They thought they had it all figured out. They thought they were ahead. But now they realize that you were the one who understood all along. They realized that the security they swore by was nothing more than a carefully crafted deception, and you, the one they dismissed, were the only one who saw beyond it. There is no comfort in this realization, only regret. They scramble, trying to salvage something from the wreckage, but nothing remains. The very things they held onto, status, approval, the illusion of control, have turned to dust in their hands, and while they stand in confusion, you remain steady, because you never needed the illusion, you never built your life on deception, you never sought stability in things that could not last. And now, while they crumble under the weight of their own blindness, you walk forward, untouched. The silent awakening. They don't talk about it, but you can feel it. The shift in their energy. The way their presence changes when you enter the room. The way their words come slower, measured, cautious. They won't admit it, but something inside them has shifted. They see you differently now. Before they dismissed your presence, barely acknowledging your words. But now they listen, not to argue, not to contradict, but to understand. It is not an open recognition, not something they will say out loud, but it is undeniable. You see it in the way they hesitate before speaking against you, in the way they hold back when they once would have mocked. You see it in the way they no longer laugh so easily, the way they consider your perspective before immediately rejecting it. They are watching you, not because they want to, but because they need to. Because everything they once trusted has failed them. Because the paths they defended have led them nowhere. And now, they are desperate for something real. They won't ask for your guidance. Their pride won't allow it. But they will study you in silence, hoping to understand what they once ignored. They scroll through your old words, the ones they once dismissed, reading them with new eyes. They remember the conversations where they ridiculed your insight, and now they use those same insights as if they discovered them on their own. They won't credit you. They won't acknowledge that they are learning from you. But you don't need them to, because you see it for what it is, a silent awakening. They won't say you were right. They won't give you the validation they once denied you. But their actions speak louder than their words. And in the way they linger, in the way they listen, in the way they try to emulate what they once rejected, you know that they finally see it, that they finally understand, that all along you were not the one who was lost. You were simply the first to see the power of moving forward. There is no power in looking back. There is nothing left for you in the places you have outgrown, in the minds that refuse to see, in the conversations that led nowhere. The past has already spoken, and its echoes no longer hold weight in your world. You have always known that the only way forward is through growth, and now more than ever, that truth becomes your foundation. They expect you to stay in the past with them, to re-engage, to seek closure that does not exist. But closure is a myth for those who refuse to let go. You do not need an apology. You do not need validation from the very people who once dismissed you. The truth has already spoken on your behalf, and their regrets are not your responsibility. You move forward because that is what chosen ones do. You are not meant to dwell in places where you were never valued, nor are you meant to waste energy proving what is already evident. They want you to pause, to acknowledge their newfound understanding, to engage in their guilt, but you have outgrown the need for their recognition. They once ignored your wisdom, and now they study it in silence. They once rejected your insight, and now they try to mirror it. But you do not wait for them to catch up. You do not slow your pace for those who once ridiculed your stride. Your purpose is not tied to their timeline. The power of moving forward lies in knowing that your journey was never meant to be understood by those who could not see. It lies in the quiet realization that while they are trapped in regret, you are liberated by truth. The weight of their past choices belongs to them, not to you. While they struggle with the consequences of their blindness, you continue to rise, untouched by their regret, unbothered by their awakening. You do not need them to acknowledge your wisdom. The fact that they finally see it is enough. Leadership through silence. True leadership is never announced. It does not demand attention. It does not seek validation. It does not beg to be followed. True leadership moves in silence, influencing without force, guiding without expectation, and inspiring without the need for recognition. This is the power you now carry. They used to laugh at you, dismiss you, undermine you, but now they hesitate. Their voices, once loud with arrogance, have grown quiet. Their certainty, once unshakable, has cracked under the weight of reality. And now they watch, not openly, not with acknowledgement, but from the shadows, from a distance, from the quiet spaces where they hope you do not notice. They study you not because they respect you, but because they no longer trust themselves. Every choice they made, every illusion they defended has left them lost. And now they seek direction not by asking but by observing. They echo your words without giving credit. They adjust their behavior without admitting their inspiration. They follow your path in secrecy, hoping to absorb what they once rejected. But you do not lead by force. You do not need to demand that they see. The truth is its own authority. The greatest leadership is not about proving yourself. It is about standing firm in your truth, unwavering and unmoved, while others struggle to find theirs. You do not chase recognition. You do not beg for validation. And yet they follow, because true power does not persuade, it attracts. And in your silence, in your consistency, in your unwavering authenticity, you have become the leader they never acknowledged but always needed. The final truth: they believed you were weak. They convinced themselves that you needed their approval, that their rejection would break you. They were wrong. It was never you who needed them. It was always them who needed you. The truth has never required permission to be real. It has never needed validation to exist. And now, as they struggle with the weight of their regret, as they quietly try to reclaim the wisdom they once marked, they are forced to confront what they always feared. You never needed them, but they have always needed you. They built their confidence on illusions, while you built your strength on truth. They relied on external validation, while you cultivated internal wisdom. And now, as their world shakes and yours remains unshaken, the contrast is undeniable. You were never meant to fit into their world. You were never meant to shrink yourself for their comfort. And now they see it. They may never admit it, but they feel it every time they hesitate before dismissing you. Every time they find themselves drawn to the very words they once ridiculed. Every time they realize that you were never lost, you were ahead. The final truth is this: you have won, not through argument, not through force, but through patience, through consistency, through an unshakable knowing that time would always reveal what needed to be seen. You do not need their apology. You do not need their recognition. Their regret is enough. The chosen ones have always walked a different path. It is not an easy one, nor is it one that many will understand, but it is a path of clarity, of wisdom, of undeniable truth. And while the world may resist it, while people may reject it, time will always reveal what was meant to be seen. You do not need to look back. You do not need to wait for those who once dismissed you to catch up. You have already won, not by proving them wrong, but by never needing to. Your truth has stood the test of time. Their regret is proof enough. And now, as they struggle with their awakening, as they quietly try to reclaim the wisdom they once rejected, you continue forward, unaffected, unshaken, unstoppable. This is the way of the chosen ones, not to seek validation, not to demand recognition, but to rise, to move forward, and to let truth do the work. Because in the end, truth is always revealed, and those who once doubted will never doubt you again.